there, and welcome to today's video. For today's video, I just wanted to build a moat. And that is really all this video is about for today. I just wanted to build a moat, and I figured why not try to make not necessarily a castle, since that was going to take a very long time, but let's build a house that has a tower on it and make it a very, very old house. Old enough where, for example, the inner walls that have brick, those will be just painted brick at the end of the day. I didn't want this to be, oh, this is a designer choice. I wanted this to be more of that was the only thing you could do with the wall. I wanted it to look very plastered instead of just looking like painted brick. So building the moat was fine. I wanted to build that with alligators as well. Is it an alligator or a crocodile? And I also ended up putting some mosquitoes here and there. I put some logs. I ended up adding a lot of greenery as well, which I cut out a lot here and there, mainly because stuff like that just ends up taking a lot of time in the video. Now, as for the build itself, I didn't have any particular idea of what I wanted there. I just wanted a tower, but I didn't want to make this another witch tower since we've already done that. And I take absolutely no credit for what I did to connect the moat to the land itself, since I just saw James Turner testing that out in his game, and it turned out that it worked, so I figured why not try to use that exact same thing again. I ended up doing it stone since I wanted it to look kind of faded. A lot of the idea around this house was that it's not necessarily abandoned, but not necessarily updated either. So you'll find that I believe the only electronic thing I placed in this house was actually a fire alarm, and I placed that in the kitchen. I'm still not sure how exactly they work, since it's been a long time since I've played Sims myself. But I remember back in the day you needed to put a fire alarm wherever there was a fire source, since it wasn't a matter of one fire alarm would do the whole house. So I didn't put one next to the fireplace. I'm not sure if it's actually needed there or not. And there's just a fire alarm in the kitchen at this point. I keep forgetting that Sims just want to turn on fireplaces all the time, and I mean all the time. But anyway, since I had the mentality in mind that I wanted this to be older feeling, I ended up even putting the fridge that is one of the ones that you can use completely off the grid. The house isn't off the grid though, since I did end up putting lighting that does require you to have electricity. But it's lighting that I could imagine was probably very, very early on with electricity, or it probably could have even been candlelight at one point. Now, with the build itself, one of my biggest issues with doing base game only builds is that we're still at a point where absolutely nothing matches. The only way you can get some doors that match with windows is basically to go modern, or to go all white. So for example, in this house I wanted to do black, and I found a window that has the shutters shut on them, and the shutters are black, but the frame of the window is also black, yet you don't have the matching window with the shutters open. So these are the types of things that I believe that by this point should have probably been updated. Colors should probably match, but at the end of the day, none of the wood tones match anything in this game. Even some of the metal framing I find doesn't really match, but alas, that is what I worked with. I ended up changing it to be green instead of black. It ended up working out. I didn't mind adding some color here and there, since, again, at the end of the day, since this was supposed to be a very old build, I wanted it to be all stone and brick. I didn't want to rely too much on metals, but I did use a lot of woods. And on the inside as well, I ended up going for a lot more stone than I did wood, except when we go upstairs, it is a bit more wood there. I really feel like something this game is really missing to be able to give this build a lot more of what I wanted though, is a lot more dirty objects. It sounds like a weird request, but for some reason I've been liking doing either older or abandoned lots, or just things that are very cluttered, and I feel like items that look like they're dirty or they're worn or something that doesn't necessarily have a use but it's there for just decoration is what a lot of these builds really are missing. Since we're on the subject of asking for things anyways, I feel like we should have more items that can actually slot to shelves. Even outside of base game, a lot of items try to look for a full tile, whereas I think shelf items are things that can slot into quarter tiles, or at least half tiles. So I believe that one of the next packs that they should make, kind of like the one that they did with the kitchen stuff, and I believe the other one was like retro outfits or something. One of the next ones should just be clutter. If you make a pack that is absolutely everything clutter, and you make it good clutter, so like some small plants, some magazines that you can actually slot into shelves, just items like that, I feel like people would just go crazy over that. But then again, no one thought we would actually get anything to do with farming, and here we are with cottage living. So who knows, maybe one day. Besides the no items matching, there's not much to say about the build itself. There's a living room, which is kind of formal. The kitchen, which again, I tried to not use stuff that you couldn't use off the grid technically. I don't know if there's many sinks that you can use off the grid, so the sink wouldn't count in that. But I just wanted to give it an older look. And one of the things that I was working around in this house was, at first I wasn't too sure how I wanted to do the roof, and I ended up doing it basically how I end up doing most roofs, which is forget about the angles that the house ended up having. But by playing around with that, I actually ended up with a skylight, which I wanted to make into a light well that went all the way down, but for some reason it wasn't given as much light as I wanted it to. It's not a matter of removing the roof or anything like that, because I tried that several times, but the illusion is still there. There is a glass roof and it does run throughout the whole length of the house. So I really wanted to work around that when I was building the rest of the layout. And the house ended up with a bit of a weird layout, but at the end of the day it works, and I actually rather enjoy how some of the parts in the house that I probably wouldn't have known what to do with them, I ended up just making them into usable space by having it be where the stairs and where the hallway would be. I tend to like more than a single tile hallway, but that's just the way it ended up working out in this house. All in all, for the tower, initially, the third floor of the tower, I wanted it to be maybe something like an office space, but since I wasn't using any electronics, I didn't want to just have a desk with somewhere to write for The Sims, since that wouldn't really be usable, so I ended up just chucking a piano there. I was mentioning just the other day how most builds don't actually have space for pianos, so I figured, hey, might as well fit one in here since there is a space in this one. Besides that, it's a house where 4 Sims can live. There's 2 whole bathrooms, 1 half bath, and I did playtest this house. I've been trying to playtest more of my houses just to make sure everything actually does work. So glad to let you know this one does work. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think of this one down below. Let me know what you'd like me to try out next, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a great weekend!